instruction should be, you may have a hung jury. You may have people with that sympathy, and this deliberation could be going on for quite some time.
That's interesting. You think it could be going on for some time? And the other issue is, do juries normally react to... Ken, we have a verdict?
We have a verdict, Jose, and that's all I know at this point. We just saw a flurry of journalists running towards the courthouse, and we've determined that the judge has been told there is a verdict. And so stand by. We'll get it to you as soon as we have it.
Okay, so we'll stand by and just stay with me as well as Jeff. Yeah. Go ahead.
So much for my theory of deliberations going on for quite some time.
Just thinking. What does that normally tell you, Jeff?
Yeah, generally a quick verdict favors the government, but it's hard to say here. And it was a short trial. It wasn't a lengthy trial like Donald Trump's trial. And so we do not know. They've been out for about 3 hours, but it is a pretty quick verdict.
Okay, and so back to Ken, the process is we don't have cameras. There are no microphones in there. What is the process for finding this information out?
That's right. We have elaborate plans, Jose, which should remain confidential. But we have many plans and fail-safes to get this verdict to you as quickly as possible. I will say 3 hours is unexpectedly short, but at the same time, this was not a complicated case, right? In terms of what the government had to prove, the elements of the 3 charges, it was pretty simple. They had to prove that he was a user or addicted to, not just addicted to, but an illegal user of is also an option, of drugs during the time around the period he bought the gun. As you said, not on the day he bought the gun, not even the week he owned the gun, but just around that time. And there's ample evidence of that. It's not even really disputed that Hunter Biden was addicted to crack cocaine before he bought the gun. And then in the months afterwards, he called himself an addict in conversations with friends and family. So really where the defense fought, the ground that they contested in this trial was, is there evidence that he was using drugs during the 11-day period that he bought the gun? And they said there was doubt about that. But it's not even clear that that matters in the end. The prosecution argued that it didn't matter. Nonetheless, they also argued with the defense and tried to present evidence that, in fact, he was using drugs even a day after or 2 days after he purchased that gun. There are text messages to that effect. Those aren't definitive. But again, not complicated charges. Jury back here with a verdict within 3 hours of deliberations. As Jeff said, that's normally good for the government, but who knows? We'll find out when we do.
All right, well, and of course, Ken, standing by with you. But meanwhile, Jeff, talk to us about these 3 charges, and we're showing there on the screen these 3 counts against Hunter Biden. Can you kind of go down each one of those and what they mean and what the possible, probable, sentences could be if someone is found guilty on any or all of these?
Okay, sure. We have Hunter Biden arriving right now.
Okay,
if somebody is excuse me.
I'm sorry, Jeff. This is live, and we're all watching this together. But also hold for just a second. It looks as though somebody's arriving, and you can see there that there is. Looks like Hunter Biden.
We believe that's Hunter Biden.
Yep, we see it is Hunter Biden arriving now to the courtroom, to the courthouse. Clearly, that's one of the requirements, right, Jeff? I mean, so meanwhile, Jeff, if you could, talk to us about these 3 counts.
Sure. Well, false statements on a firearms purchase is a criminal violation, obviously. But I have to tell you, Jose, these kind of cases are not frequently brought. And sometimes they're put together with an armed robbery as well. And if you're found guilty of them, I think it would be unlikely that he would receive jail time. Most of the time, just like the diversion he had pled guilty to, most of the time judges put defendants in a rehab center and try to rectify the underlying problem. So unless something political comes in here, and I don't think it has. I think the judge has run a fair trial. Generally, Biden, as a defendant, if convicted, would not get jail time.
So either, and these are all, so, and we're looking at the 3 counts, right? So maximum prison sentence on one, 10 years, and then on the third one also 10 years. They would not be concurrent. If, Jeff.
Well, they could be concurrent, they could be consecutive, but based on Hunter Biden's background, I think the judge may really cut him a break here. Well, he hasn't been convicted yet, so let's see what the verdict is.
It's important to state that.
You know, we're just speculating, and I have to tell you that if he's convicted, I would imagine his pre-sentence interview would be a lot longer than Donald Trump's pre-sentence interview, because generally those interviews take quite some time, and it's a thorough background investigation of the defendant who has been convicted, including health issues, employment history, drug tests, and certainly with Hunter Biden there would be drug tests, and periodic drug tests indefinitely probably.
And Ken, it's important to say that this case and this trial is being carried out because there was an agreement earlier that fell through.
Yeah, that's right, Jose. There's a lot of legal experts who wonder why we are here. As Jeff said, this is a case that's rarely brought as a standalone charge. And under that plea agreement, Hunter Biden was going to enter into what's called a diversion agreement, where there wouldn't be a felony conviction on his record in connection with this case if he satisfied the terms of that agreement. And it was linked with the other case against him, which is the tax evasion and tax fraud case. He's facing trial on that in September, also felonies. Under those charges, he was going to plead guilty to a misdemeanor. That plea agreement called for no jail time. It fell apart just as they were coming into court to get it done over a disagreement over whether that agreement granted Hunter Biden immunity from other conduct, including potential foreign lobbying violations. The prosecution at the last minute said that it didn't. The judge raised questions about it, and then they went back to negotiating. This is what gets lost. The judge did sort of scotch the plea agreement on the day. But afterwards, a lot of negotiations took place, and at the end of the day, Hunter Biden's team would not agree to the terms that the prosecution was offering. And our understanding, our reporting is that most of that deal was still on the table, a no jail time deal. But the Hunter Biden team was concerned that it didn't hold them harmless from other investigations by the Justice Department, and so therefore they decided to take their chances at trial. We're going to find out today whether that was a smart decision, because right now he has no immunity from other prosecutorial efforts from the Justice Department. It's been a year since that plea agreement fell apart. There's been no sign of any other federal investigation of conduct by Hunter Biden. So they decided that they couldn't live with the terms of that agreement, and they decided to go to trial, and here we are. We're going to find out again very soon whether that was a good decision, Jose.
Jeff, walk us through what is happening right now vis-a-vis inside that courtroom. You know, we saw there Hunter Biden just coming in literally minutes ago. What's the process that we can expect now?
Sure. The process is that the counsel will be seated at table with the defendant. The judge will be on the bench. The jury will enter the courtroom. The judge will ask if you have a verdict. The foreperson will say yes. We'll hand the verdict over to the court clerk, who will give it to the judge. The judge will give it back to the court clerk, and then back to the foreperson, who will read the verdict. And then probably, if the defendant is convicted, they will want to poll the jury, which means you ask each juror individually if you agree with the verdict. And if they agree with the verdict, then there's a verdict. The jury is let go. Presumably, there's confidentiality there, and the judge will warn them to some extent about any media contacts and so forth if there's a concern about any kind of safety, which would be very unlikely in this case. At least unlikely if he's convicted. If he's acquitted, it's not clear what could happen. And then once the jury is let go, the judge will set a sentencing date. 99.9% sure Hunter Biden would not be incarcerated pending sentencing. They would schedule a time for a pre-sentence interview, and sentencing will take place probably in 2 months or so.
So, Ken, what do we know about those jury members? And you mentioned a little bit at the beginning of our conversation, one of them. What else do we know about the jury members?
You know, Jose, I got to tell you, I don't have that information in front of me. We have very sort of basic demographic information about the jury, but I just don't have that in front of me, so I can't share it with you. We'll get that.
Well, I apologize for asking you something that I didn't know you had the information on, but I want to apologize to you on that, Ken. But the process as we see it here, and this is what we, you know, as much as we do know about it, 6 men, 6 women, 2 members own or previously owned firearms, 3 members with family members who own or previously owned firearms, 4 members of a close friend or family member who has struggled with drug or alcohol addiction, which is what Ken was telling us at the beginning of our conversation. 1 member works for the U.S. Secret Service. 1 watches CBS Evening News regularly. So, Jeff, with that information, if you are a defense attorney working with and for Hunter Biden, how do you focus on those jury members, and what do you focus on those jury members, or can you?
Well, you will clearly look at them when they come back in the courtroom and see who makes eye contact, who doesn't. But really, it's hard to say.